Really looking forward to our next fight at women's bantamweight. We have Banzai, Pannie Kianzad representing Sweden, taking on the US of A's own Sijara Eubanks. Matt, do you remember a time when Sijara Eubanks was supposed to be the heir apparent to the UFC's inaugural flyweight championship? It seems like it wasn't that long ago. She was on the Ariel Helwani show. She was talking mad smack. Like, things were looking up for Sijara Eubanks.
Sijara Eubanks is supposed to headline a pay-per-view at Madison Square Garden. Her and Valentina Shevchenko were the original headliner for UFC 230, and then, of course, DC ended up fighting Derek Lewis. But at one point, that does tell you where Sijara Eubanks was in the division.
And, I mean, it's crazy to think. You look at her last 5 fights, and, I mean, yeah, 2 wins, 3 losses. It is what it is, but I mean, if we go back to the fifth to last fight, it was only a year and a half ago against Aspen Ladd. She loses a decision.
Fight of the night.
Albeit, yeah, fight of the night, a decently close fight. She loses to Betch Kohei in a fight that wasn't very close. And Betch is liable just about every fight for, you know, walking back to her corner while the fight's still going on or punching herself in the face and getting rocked. And in Sijara Eubanks' next fight, she beats Canada's own cupcake, Sarah Morris. She has a win over Julia Avila, which was a weird fight because it was a short notice, comeuppance, so to speak. And then in her last fight, which was only 2.5 months ago, she lost to Ketlin Vieira. And Vieira was coming back. I mean, she took a tough loss against Irene Aldana. In her last fight, took a long time off and picked up a great win against Sijara Eubanks.
She did, and she beat Sijara Eubanks doing a lot of things that Eubanks does well herself. Because when you talk about Sijara Eubanks, she fights a little bit like a Duran Wynn, who we talked about previously. She's going to go for a lot of takedowns. She's a very high-volume fighter. She does something that I don't really like, but we do see it a lot in sort of women's MMA. She just is extremely aggressive, and sometimes that will win you fights. We saw that in the Aspen Ladd fight. That's really what made that fight so close to begin with, because Aspen Ladd, she's the more technical striker. She was better on the floor. But Sijara Eubanks would just rush at her and throw really high volume, and that made that fight a lot closer than it probably should have been. But that does come back to bite you. She tried to do the same thing against Betch Kohea, but against Betch, her cardio wasn't really there, so she had really high output for that first round. But you could tell that she was just kind of fighting herself almost as the fight progressed. She couldn't keep up the volume that she was trying to keep pace with. And it has been really weird for Sijara Eubanks, because even at 135, she's much physically stronger than a lot of the women who she will be fighting. But her cardio is such a big question mark, and I know we have seen improvements in it. In the Sarah Morris fight, she did look a lot better. In the Julia Avila fight, she did look really good. She just defended a lot of takedowns and kept that fight on the feet, though. And for Pannie Kianzad, she'll be able to take advantage of some of the shortcomings that Sijara Eubanks brings to the table. The fact that she does have such a big reach advantage, and she will play on the outside quite a bit, it's going to be hard for Eubanks to get inside on her. If she is going to try to have a more wrestling-heavy game plan in this fight, I do think she's going to have a hard time getting past the jab and the kicks of Pannie Kianzad.
And I mean, with Pannie Kianzad, not to really slag you too much, but as far as the reach is concerned, they have Sijara Eubanks' reach a little bit more, just 1 inch more than Pannie Kianzad, but the height advantage definitely with Kianzad, the fighter out of Sweden, coming out of Gym Arte Suave, you know, the Mill Mech trains there, among others, so that's kind of neat. But for Pannie Kianzad, again, works well from the outside. If you want to play MMA math with this fight, you're going to be chasing your tail, because Betch Kohea beat Sijara Eubanks and lost to Pannie Kianzad in a fight where, you know, she made Betch Kohea mistakes. Pannie Kianzad lost to Julia Avila. Sijara Eubanks looked great against Julia Avila. So who's going to win this fight? Well, don't look at those two fights. Look at the styles of these two fighters. Now, if we look at the Tapology votes, 658 in total, 65% going Kianzad, 89% predicting her to get the win by decision. If we have a look at the odds, maybe a little bit of a surprise, but not so much. Sijara Eubanks the favorite. Open to minus 175. The line popped up. It's coming back down again. Eubanks minus 160 right now. If you look over at Pannie Kianzad, open up a plus 150. She's now at a plus 131. So, Matt, again, it's a little bit of a clash of styles. Pannie Kianzad, for what it's worth so far in the UFC, has had really good takedown defense at a 92% clip. Macy Chasson tried for 6, was unable to get any of them. I know she did get taken down in her last fight, and that's the lone blemish against Betch. Rowdy Betch. But, I mean, that's a former title challenger.
It is. Maybe not one of the better ones. We'll loop her in with maybe a Jessica Ai, for instance. Goodness, harping on a lot of these fighters. But It will be interesting. I do think Sijara Eubanks, if she can get on top of Pannie Kianzad, she's going to give her a lot of trouble. The ground and pound of Sijara Eubanks is something that's quite underrated. When she gets on top of her opponent, she makes control time really worth something. She's not just going to wait on top and holding, sort of lay and pray. She will get to work, and she is quite active on the mat. We saw that a lot in the Roxanne Modafferi fight of all of them. She was really able to keep a high output throughout, get on top, and a lot. That was a classic Joe Rogan's going to talk about something and just keep on bringing it up. He talked about cardio a lot in that fight, but that was the one fight where Sijara Eubanks did seem to show a big improvement in her cardio. For Pannie Kianzad, it will be odd. If she can keep this fight on the outside and use some of her range, she will have success. We have seen her struggle with fighters who do have quite a bit of power. Of course, Macy was able to drop her. Julia Avila was able to drop her as well. Julia Avila, I don't know why I keep on adding the A onto the end of that. So it will be interesting to see because, again, both fighters can fight in a way that gives their opponent trouble, and it's a real split down the middle kind of fight.
I mean, the value you're missing there was an I. There's still an A there.
Avila, goodness.
Yeah,
I'm struggling.
No worries. But, yeah, I mean, I look at this one, again, it's probably going to be a tale of two fights. Can Sijara Eubanks take it down to the mat? Can Pannie Kianzad withstand the takedown attempts? And, I mean, again, stats-wise, it's tough. It's also tough because two totally different divisions, and then Sijara Eubanks migrating up. But she's been a lot more active as far as takedown accuracy is concerned, 46%. I do like that. Average submissions attempted per 15 minutes at 0.4 is kind of weird because the weird X factor was Sijara Eubanks. Pretty good boxing, I would say. I think that's fair. Good enough boxing. You're going to lose to Ketlin Vieira. She was ranked number 2 at one point at bantamweight before losing to Aldana. And yeah, she is wild, but really good at getting the fight down to the mat, and then really good at opposing her size. And it's weird to say that because she's shorter than most of the women that she fights at bantamweight, but she is usually able to impose some of that size on them. The ground and pound's great, but then in your back pocket you have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and you're training at a Nick Cantone MMA. And say what you will about the progression of Claudia Gadelha, but there are some good fighters to train out of that area of the world, and Mark Henry has kind of accentuated some of those good things with Sijara Eubanks. So I'm going to slightly edge with the favorite in this one. It's Sijara Eubanks. I know, in the past I've been pretty high on Pannie Kianzad. She's one of those fighters that it was just a matter of time. As it wasn't a question of if, it was a question of when we were going to get her in the UFC, and we finally do have her here now. But I do like Eubanks' style in this one. I think she's just going to be able to grind out a decision in this one.
It's hard to disagree with. I am going to say don't put any money on this fight. No. There's so many question marks around it, but I do like what you said. I agree with the Eubanks pick. I do think her wrestling and her ground and pound is going to be really on point this fight. I think we're going to see a lot of that from
Matt, both of us going with a really active American in this one in Sijara Eubanks. You're not going to want to miss the rest of predictions for the card. 15 fights in total, so keep it locked in with the playlist right over there. Keep it locked in with Fight Night picks. Matt, as we always say, let's get into it.